You are tuned into Fitness and Consciousness. I'm Ryan Hadley. Today's show is called Zen and the Art of Human Maintenance. I'm going to be talking about my training methods, the type that I've learned, the type that I've developed, and I'm going to get into how to put that all together. And we're going to get into injuries, how to prevent them, how to work around them when we are still wanting to train. So to start with, I started with Zen. So I started training formally in Zen in 1997. My jiu-jitsu teacher came here from Korea, came to Indianapolis from Korea in 1969. I think actually he went to LA first, but anyways, he started teaching in Indianapolis in 1969. He was invited here by I believe it was the Indiana Judo Association to teach judo. And so in 1969, he opened up the school that I started going to in 1997, and he teaches traditional Japanese martial arts. And at the end of our jiu-jitsu class, we would do Zen meditation for 10 minutes. And there was also Zen class meditation only on like the first Saturday of the month. And meditation was part of our promotions. You had to come in and you had to meditate for however long as part of our promotions, usually an hour. It's usually the hour thing. And so that's how I got my formal training in that. I started meditation years before then, but it was not under direct guidance. It was learned through books and just guided meditations that friends and I would do. We would just come up with meditations. We would take each other on these guided meditations. We'd go sit out. There was this quarry we would go to, and different places out in the woods, and we would just make stuff up, see what happened. We just whatever came through us is what we did. So I'm going to talk about how to meditate. It's not going to be a really long description, I don't think. And could this meditation improve something like sexual vitality? Well, the answer is absolutely. So for a man to be able to last however long his woman wants him to last, this is the way. I'm not going to get too detailed into that in particular on this episode, but if you practice this way, then it it works. So the method that I developed I call it the 5 elements. And the 5 elements are mobility, stability, strength, power, and endurance. And it is the alchemy, the combination of these 5 elements where the magic happens. So that's how athletes are developed. And everyone has some degree of this. And whether you're a competitive athlete or you just want to get in better shape, taking all of these into account will get you the optimal results. And so I'm going to go through each one of those and briefly, and then I'll talk about how I put classes together. And I do offer like online training. This episode's not a commercial for that, but if you are interested, you can send me an email. The easiest one to remember because of the show is going to be fitnessandconsciousness@gmail.com. So online training can be through video. I can do technique analysis, consultations, and you can send me an email to see if what you want is something that I can help you with. So if you want to do something like Olympic weightlifting, I'm not really the guy to teach you that. I mean, I kind of know that stuff, but I don't practice it. It's not my thing. But many other things that I could very well help you with. And I think this show in itself will be helpful if you're maybe a newer trainer, you train on your own, or maybe you've been training people for a long time and you're wanting to switch things up or to just gain more perspective. So this show in itself, like I said, it's not just a commercial. It's a overview of how I do things. So the first one, the first element, mobility. Now I would consider mobility anytime there's movement. So other people can have different definitions of these, and there's overlap. But so mobility. So if you're standing there and you're doing arm circles, that's a mobility exercise. If you're walking, that's mobility. If you're running, anytime you're moving. So, and perhaps you could put stretching kind of into this also, but stretching could also be strength. Stretching could be it. If you keep breaking it down more and more, you see how it's hard to nail everything down. It's like playing like whack-a-mole with your definitions. So I don't want to get too in the weeds with that. I haven't found that helpful. So mobility, think of any time you're moving. So shoulder circles, hip circles, and locomotion. So it was also including if you're doing animal movements. So bear crawls and monkey movements and pretty much anytime you're moving. Mobility. So stability, I'm defining as a static strength. So it's not moving when there's some force that wants you to move. So even just standing upright is going to be stability. Gravity is wanting to pull you down. Our shoulders want to slump. Our head wants to come forward. But you resist that. You align your bone structure for optimal posture and stability that way. Also, if we're having a movement like a dumbbell clean and press or kettlebell press, and I'm standing there and I'm pressing the kettlebell or whatever it is above my head. So my body is doing stability, and my arm is going to have some degree of mobility and strength. So strength being moving movement under resistance. So that's most lifting movements are going to be in the strength category. So it's mobility, stability, strength. The next one is power. So power will often have a relaxation phase. So if you're throwing a punch, it's not this constant tension like you would under with you're bench pressing 300 pounds, and there's a constant tension. It's slow. It's not really powerful, although one could argue that it does have an element of that. But so power is going to often have this relaxation phase. So think of, instead of press, more like a jerk. So the jerk, you use your legs and you get the momentum going, and then you dip under the weight get the arm straight, and then raise up. So that's displaying power. So it has that somewhat of a relaxation phase, or the throwing the punch. There's like tension, relaxation, and then tension, and then relaxation, all in one punch. Uh, and then endurance is the last one. So it's any of these over time. So those are the 5 elements: mobility, stability, strength, power, endurance. And combining these gets us the optimal results. And almost anything that you can think of is going to fit into those 5. And like I said, there's going to be overlap. And it's understanding the overlaps that will provide you better and better results with less plateaus, because you can see the different things that you can work on while something else is coming to a plateau. You can switch things up and keep making progress in a different area, which will then, when you come back to the one that you plateaued at, it's going to give you the different skills that may perhaps push you through and make more progress that way. So a little bit more about me. So with my training, I started as a trainer in 1999, and I'm currently certified by Strong First as a kettlebell instructor, and I've been training with kettlebells for 8 years or so, 9 years, and I've been following Pavel's way mostly since then. And I've looked at pretty much every method that there is. There's, of course, there's going to be some things I haven't seen, but for the most part, I spend a lot of my time searching these different methods to find out what's the best, because people pay me a decent amount of money to know what I'm talking about. And so I take it as honor and responsibility to make sure that I'm providing people the top level of training. I developed my own method that follows the 5-element theory, and I call it freestyle kettlebell training. So in freestyle kettlebell training, as opposed to just the strong first style, strong first is considered hard style. It created hard style. With freestyle kettlebell training, I do that. That's what I mainly do. But there's also more flowing movements. There's more different kinds of juggling with the kettlebell. There's more, I guess you'd say, like variety of movements that are not just put into the Strong First curriculum. Strong First isn't trying to show you 10,000 techniques and how to do them, in a mediocre way. It's focusing on relatively few techniques and being excellent at them. And I believe that is typically going to be the best way to start out, because that's going to provide you a very strong foundation for adding whatever it is that you want to add. So I will put a class together. So at the beginning of a class, with classes we have to be a little bit more general. So where with clients, I write everything down, every set, every rep. The progressions are set, and I make changes as we go. So yeah, I have a good idea of what we're going to be doing next week and the week after, but that could change. It's not written in stone. I use a pen, and I can change things up as necessary. And one of the things that makes us change things up is injuries. I'll get to that in a little bit. I'll go back to like how I put the class together. So at the beginning of a class, where I'm going to have different people, different strength levels, experience, age, a whole host of variables, and just writing out a detailed program for everybody and trying to implement that in the classes, it's just, there's just no way. So what I do is we begin with mobility. And so it's going to be like the stuff like the shoulder circles and trunk twists and uh, various movements. I usually start with the head and then go down to the toes. So with the head, start with like neck circles and neck going in each direction, left, right, up and down, etc. Then shoulder circles, trunk twist, hip circles, knee circles. There's a few different ways to do that. And then move down to the rolling the ankles around, rolling the toes under on the floor. So the top part of your toe is on the ground and you're circling your ankle around. So you're also um, moving your toes around. You're working all the joints literally from head to toe. Get started at the beginning, and we can only, maybe we'll spend just 5 minutes or so on this, and then maybe we'll move into some animal movements, and just to get the body more and more primed for lifting. Other times we will skip the animal movements and go straight into carries. I start a lot of my classes carrying weights, and we'll either carry. Most of the time, we're using kettlebells. I've found that kettlebells are, when you're working with groups, they're a lot more versatile, and you don't have to be so precise with the weights. So kettlebells go farther than the dumbbells or barbells. But so we'll start out carrying the kettlebells, and maybe you'll have like doing like a suitcase carry, maybe one arm, two arms, and then go to the rack position. So you'll have the kettlebell in the rack position, one, two kettlebells, and then we will go overhead. So overhead carries, and again, one or two. So you also might have the kettlebells in different positions. So one is overhead and one is in the rack position. One is in overhead and one is in the low position, the suitcase carry position. And all those variables. So the same thing, one's in the rack, one is at the suitcase. So we cover all these different things. And a lot of times I'm not really dictating exactly what everybody has to do for these parts. So I'll just say carries. And most of the people that I'm working with now have been training with me for quite some time, so that they already know. They know what we're doing. But I may say, okay, this time we're doing one kettlebell, this time we're doing two. And I try to have a balance of that. There's different advantages of having the imbalanced load. So maybe you have one that's heavy, one that's medium. So you're carrying an imbalanced load. So then we get into the different lifts that we'll be doing. So we'll start with maybe squats. So instead of having a prescribed number of sets and reps like I would with a one-on-one client or a small group, I'll set the timer for maybe 6 minutes. And I vary the time, but let's just say 6 minutes. And I'll say, okay, one kettlebell or two kettlebells, same size, different size for imbalanced load. Maybe we're shooting towards the most that we've ever done, but it's usually going to be somewhere in the 3 to 5 rep range. And so I might have one person may end up doing quite a few more than someone else. maybe they were working at a lighter weight. Maybe they were, there's a whole list of variables. But instead of like waiting for someone else to finish up their 4 sets or their 6 sets, you have 6 minutes to work on this skill. Strength is a skill. And at the end of that 6 minutes, I will perhaps move on to a press. So I'll do the same thing, set the timer for 6 minutes or whatever it is. And maybe we're working on more of like a push press. Maybe we're just using momentum to get the kettlebell up. And maybe we're working on just strict pressing, so no movement at all. So maybe we'll go to a lunge position and work on pressing that way, where it's harder to get any momentum from the legs. And maybe we'll go to like a double kneeling position. So maybe you're on both knees and pressing the kettlebell that way. And we'll move on. I'll try to have every class cover all 5 elements: mobility, stability, strength, power, and endurance. So where do squats fit in mobility, stability, strength, power, and endurance? Well, the answer is it could be all of them. And the emphasis on which one may change for the class. And it's not something that I'm explaining super thoroughly each class. We're just changing things up to cover that, because whether we like it or not, these things are happening. So we're focusing mainly on form. So if someone's form is not so great, I'm not trying to have them do tons and tons of bad reps. We're trying to dial in of good reps. You have good reps, then you can do more and increase the intensity that way. We'll also add various body weight movements and barbell stuff sometimes and dumbbells, but mostly where I train, it's where I teach my classes anyway, is White Pine Wilderness Academy. And it's not a huge space that we have. So the kettlebells are also good for that. So we're not trying to fit a bunch of barbells in and trying to make something like that work. So it's like mostly kettlebells and then body weight training. So the body weight training could be what one thing I really like is called the original strength push-up. So it kind of looks like up dog, down dog kind of, but not exactly from yoga. And you're basically going from a push-up position, like the lower part of the push-up, and then when you push up, you're also pushing back. And so your hands and feet are on the floor, but if you tilt it, if you just switch the angle, it would look like you're doing an overhead squat with a barbell. So that's the position that we're in. So you're working all of your joints from your ankles to your wrist, toes to your fingers, really, through this movement. Your back should stay pretty neutral, so your spine is not moving a lot with those. And I won't try to describe much more, but if you just look up original strength push-up, and a lot of you are probably already familiar with that, then you'll see what I mean. So at the end of class, we will often finish the strength and conditioning part with I might set the timer for like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or I might just set 8 minutes or 10 minutes, and maybe they'll do 10 kettlebell swings, maybe one arm, maybe two arm, and then do original strength push-ups for maybe 10, or if they can only get 5 good ones, 5 is fine. Then you go back to your swings, and I won't, in that instance, I won't have a set rest period. It's whenever that person is ready. Or really, what I like to say is start like just before you're ready. But the main thing is to keep everybody safe and keep making progress. So that covers swings. I mean, it's a total body exercise, but it's mostly going to be posterior chain. I think of everything as a total body exercise, because if you're standing there and you're doing a bicep curl with one arm, what are your legs doing? They're holding you up. So what is your spine doing? It's holding you up. So what is your opposite side arm doing? Is your shoulder hiked up? Why would your other shoulder needs to be in the right position also. What about your neck? Is your neck poking forward? So even if you're standing there doing a dumbbell curl with one arm, I believe it's best to think of it as a total body exercise. Which brings us to, is that the best use of our time? If we can accept that everything we do is a total body exercise, our whole body is there, is that the best use of our time? So it's really rare that I plug those into somebody's program or do them during class. We will sometimes. Sometimes it's fun to pump up the arms, and I have a client. I've had clients. I think it was over a year that they were with me before we did a standing bicep curl. And we still don't do them very often. They're not in the program. But when let's say that it was a husband and wife that I've been working with for a while, and it was over a year before we did any standing bicep curl or any single joint movement. And when it was time to do them, just kind of like for fun, not for fun, there is benefit to it. But when we were doing, like, okay, let's pump up the arms now, and he goes to grab the dumbbells. If he's never done them before, he's been training with me for over a year. Do you think he's curling a lightweight, or do you think he's curling a pretty heavy weight? The answer is he's curling a pretty heavy weight. So how could that be if he was never working on it? And it's the development of the strength and these other elements through these other techniques. And then so standing there doing a bicep curl, even grabbing like a 40-pounder, just does it over and over again. I can do really high rep. He could do really high reps without, it was no big deal. And so we want to make sure that we're using our time most efficiently. And his arms have gotten, bigger. And I'm speaking about a bunch of different people, really. But people's arms will get bigger if they're not doing these single joint arm exercises, tricep extension, bicep curls. If you're working your presses and you're working your pull-ups, your whole arm is going to be growing. And if you're like into bodybuilding, and then maybe there's more of a reason to do bicep curls. But there's been someone, actually the CEO of Strong First, Fabio Zonin, he did a bodybuilding competition, and he did. I think he ended up coming in second or something like that, but he wasn't doing one joint exercises. He wasn't doing the standing bicep curl. You'd think he was by the way his arms look, but he wasn't. I think he said he might have done just a tiny amount, just for whatever reason, but it was not part of the program. I think it was just extra that he added in sometimes. Uh, so injuries. So today, for instance, I have a busted toe. I messed my toe up at jiu-jitsu Saturday, and I can't do much with my legs. I don't want to keep messing my foot up. I want it to heal. So I did. I set my timer for 30 minutes, and after my client today, I I did pull-ups and floor press. That was it. My warm up was light floor press. So floor press, if you don't know what I mean, it's like a bench press, except you're not using a bench. You're just laying on the floor. So your elbows don't come back as far. It's easier on the shoulders. It's not. It doesn't give. Um, it doesn't strain the shoulders too much. You can still get pretty close to your chest, especially if you arch. If you have a good arch, or some people will kind of like bridge, and so their hips are off the ground, and then the bar can really touch your chest on a floor press that way. But I usually do just my back flat on the ground, and you just press it up like a bench press. Uh, and so my warm up was light ones. So I just put 135 on the bar and do 5 reps. Could have done a lot more, but 5 reps. And I'm doing close grip, um, about shoulder width. So my first finger, my index finger, is kind of where the knurling starts. You can do it all sorts of ways, but that's what I'm doing currently. I'll vary it a little bit. And then pull-ups. So the timer's going. I set it for 30 minutes, and I do my 5 reps of floor press. And I'm doing it from the same rack that I'm doing my pull-ups from. So for 30 minutes, I am in this 4-foot square thing. And so I start off with overhand. I use the fat bar, the thicker bar. And so I'm starting off overhand. And for the warm-up, 1. And then 2. And then 3, 4, 5, 6. I keep moving up per set. And then I started doing like alternate grip. So one hand is under, one hand is over, and I'm pulling up that way, switch, and I was just going back and forth. So as my weight was going up for my floor pressing, so from 135, 155, 175, 85, 205, 225, I was doing more and more reps of pull-ups. And then when I was getting into the heavier floor press and my reps were coming down, get into the 2 or 3 rep range, my pull-ups were still going up. And then when it starts getting like, so like 20 some minutes into this, and I've gone back and forth quite a few times. I'm not counting how many sets I'm doing. I'm not spending a lot of rest time. At about a minute or so at the most, especially like when the presses were getting heavier. there might be about a minute between my pull-ups and my floor press, which would probably mean there was probably closer to about 2 minutes rest between floor press. Um, so then I worked my way back down to like I think 185 was what I was ending at, and so 5 reps or whatever of that with my alternate grip pull-ups back and forth. Timer goes off after 30 minutes, put my weights away, and I leave. So I don't stretch before, and I don't really stretch after. I might do a little bit in between, do a little trunk twisting, um, stretch my lats out a little bit. But I usually stretch my lats out while I'm doing the press, or while I'm doing the pull-ups rather. I let my shoulders get pulled up all the way in between, and then I'll kind of like lean back to start my set, or to start the rep rather, or yeah. And that helps set my shoulders in a better position for me to pull up. I've had some like shoulder issues, and this seems to be the best way for me. But for each one, I'm letting my arms pull all the way out, let my shoulders pull all the way up. And so what I've been learning as I get, I'm 39, and I've done a lot of different kinds of training, martial arts, um, and I've done very long workouts that last hours, a few hours. Sometimes I would go out into my backyard when I had a backyard, and I would take the kettlebells out, barbell out, and I could be out there for a few hours doing like climbing up the rope, and uh, I've started to learn more and more, especially as I get to this age and maybe getting um, it's like more aware of how to keep making progress. I think these uh, shorter workouts done more often can yield tremendous benefits without more stress. So I have a crazy schedule. I wake up really early. I have what I call my job. I work on a machine from 5 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. I get off of work. A couple hours later, I'm at the gym with clients. A couple hours later, I'm at the uh, at at White Pine teaching classes, and I might not get home until um, almost 9 o'clock at night. And a lot of times I don't get a lot of sleep. I get, maybe 4 hours or so. And while I feel like I'm fine, I do know that does cause a stress. Whether I want to like tough it out and not pay attention to it or not, it does have some kind of effect. A lot of times I will fall asleep after my job. I'll come home, and so I get home by like 1:30, and a lot of times I'll set my alarm for about an hour later or so, and I'll fall asleep for a little bit. I wake up and I'm ready to go, ready to do whatever's next. And so whether I'm training uh, martial arts or the lifting, I'm seeing that the more and more how recovery time is really important. And at different ages, maybe you need more recovery time. At different, if somebody like me, they have a crazy schedule from early in the morning until the middle of the evening, you're probably better served to pay attention to that. And my main goal right now is the second level of Strong First kettlebell instructor, and I'll be doing that April 27th. And I'll be turning 40 that day, so that's in 5 months and 6 months almost, whatever it is. So that's my main goal. So stuff like a toe injury, I can't just say, oh, I have a broken toe, I can't work out. I would probably not be smart to do squats. I'd probably be smart not to do like hill sprints, but doing pull-ups and floor press, yeah, I can do that. It's probably not real smart for me to train jujitsu for another week or two because I want this toe to heal. And there was a time not very long ago where I would have an injury and I would just push through it. Once you get to training, once you get to flowing, maybe it doesn't hurt so bad at that moment. And then you get home and it's like, oh man, that was a mistake. And I had a knee injury. I got that about a year ago, and I'm pretty much over it, but my legs are not haven't gained full strength back. But I was kind of doing that same thing where I was just going back to class and then I was regretting it, and then I would do something else like, oh, I think I'm cool for doing squats, so I think I can walk around the hills, and it's like, well, that was stupid. So it's a lesson I've learned a whole bunch of times over the last 20 some years, but it's starting to sink in a little bit more because the main thing that I need to do is pass my Strong First level 2 test. And I should be fine, but something like not taking care of injuries could really mess me up. My first one, I had a shoulder injury, and there were moments where I had some self-doubt whether I was going to be able to pass that test. But anyways, so let's get into the Zen. And I think I'll start to wrap it up before too long. I could make a whole show out of different aspects of this, but I mainly wanted to give an overview of my thinking and how my class structures work. And so Zen, what do I know about Zen? Well, that's quite a Zen riddle right there. But the technique I learned from my teacher is we would sit in seiza. So that is the traditional Japanese way of sitting. You're sitting on your ankles and you have your hands, you could have I know most people listen and not watch the video, but if you can see the video, have my hands in this, call it Cosmic Mudra. I think there's some other, I don't know if you could hear me, I just got away from the microphone, but you have your hands like in what is often called the Cosmic Mudra, and you have that on your Tantian. So you're sitting on your ankles, and your hands are on your legs, and your pinkies are touching your Tantian, and your thumbs are lightly touching. And your spine is neutral, and your tailbone is being pulled down with gravity, and the top back of your head is being pulled, you think of it as being pulled up. So you're trying to touch the ceiling with the top back of your head. That makes your chin tuck a little bit. Some people will teach, I see it in like some yoga um, methods. Not that it's wrong, but it's just different. But they'll have their chin up, and they think that, oh, they're getting more air. But our way is the chin is tucked. Okay, so that posture, it's also how you should do your lifting. Well, there's a lot of carryover. So tailbone is being pulled down with gravity. The top back of the head is being pushed up or pulled up like it's hanging from a string from the ceiling. And your shoulders are in line with your ear. Don't let them hunch forward, and you're not, pulling your shoulder blades together to have them too far back. If you're So your head is above your hips, and your shoulders are in line. The hips, ears. Your tongue is on your palate, so right behind your teeth, touching the top. And that makes a connection we call the microcosmic orbit. And it might sound crazy or just like some kind of baloney somebody made up, but I can feel it. And there's some things that I will not talk about that, maybe I've read all these yoga books and all about these different chakras and all about different like the Indians, they call it the nadis or the meridians, and I can describe that stuff, but I won't tell people things that I don't have direct experience with. So I personally cannot really feel my meridians. Okay. So maybe they're real, maybe they're not. I don't know. I'm not saying, I'm just saying I don't know. There was a time I tried to like focus on them. I would try like learn one and just try to feel it for that day or that week and see if I could tune into that. But I have had experience with some chakras. I've talked about a couple of them on the show. I'm not going to get into that right now. Let's say I've had a few, three that I've had experience with. So I would feel pretty comfortable talking about that. But I'm not going to tell somebody something that I don't have direct experience with, at least without saying so. But the microcosmic orbit, I can feel. And so you're sitting in Seiza, and you contract the anal sphincter, getting personal here, contract the anal sphincter and pull it up. And that will send energy up the spine. And then it comes around and it touches, it stops at your third eye spot, the point between your brow. And then it comes down the front. So you had your tongue on your palate, connects the top and bottom, and it comes down the front. Personally, I can definitely feel it come out up the front. Or come up the back. I can do it pretty much at will. I can even do left side, right side. And I feel it stop at my third eye spot. But I don't feel it come down the front very much. It's pretty faint. There has been one time in particular, I really felt it really strong. But most of the time for me, that part is pretty faint. So when uh, when we're starting this, and if you look up microcosmic orbit, you might find like Montauk Chia, uh, Mantak is his first name, and then Chia, Chia. You might find him. You will find him if you look, describing the microcosmic orbit, and it's the same as what I learned from my jujitsu teacher. It's the same thing. Mantak Chia is a Taoist teacher, and I don't want to get too detailed into this part of it, but that is the secret for sexual vitality. So if you learn how to control that, when you also learn how to separate orgasm from ejaculation for a man. It's not the same thing. So instead of orgasm and the energy come out like ejaculation, you learn how to send that energy up into your brain. Probably more than just the brain, but we could say like the upper Tontian or your crown chakra even, or your, but you can think about it just like in your head and beyond. And so normally, what I hear anyways is when, after ejaculation, guy gets tired, goes to sleep. It's this huge release, and then game over. And then this relaxation, going to sleep, laying there, and done. But with this way, instead of letting your energy come out, it goes up into your brain, and it goes off like fireworks. And it's very stimulating. It's not the relaxing release of letting it come out. It is it gives you more energy. And so for the Taoist man, he may not want to ejaculate. Maybe not for a week, maybe not for 2 weeks or a month. Because he has learned that orgasm and ejaculation are not the same thing. And these higher practices, well, it's just better. I mean, people can like whatever they want. I didn't plan to get into all of that. Maybe I'll give more details at another time. But through this meditation, that is a way to learn that. So back to the technique. Your posture allows correct breathing. You don't think inhale 4, exhale 4, or inhale, hold, exhale, hold. All you do is you concentrate your posture. And correct posture allows correct breathing. So your breathing will end up coming down to maybe just a few times per minute, maybe 5 times a minute, maybe 4, maybe 3, maybe 1. Sometimes it seems like it just stops. And then you realize, oh, it stopped. And then heart rate goes up a little bit, breathe a few times, it's because it caused this weird thing. When you realize the state that you've reached, it can, coming back from that can be Uh, uh, just it's just coming back from that. It's just what it is. It's just how it works. So what happens is we learn how to be not re- learn how to be less reactive to things also, besides this sexual vitality stuff and um, directing the orgasm into the brain and not ejaculating and falling asleep. And uh, we learn how to be less reactive. So for instance, when we're sitting there in meditation, sit down to meditate, oh, it's all peaceful, nice and quiet, the neighbor starts his lawnmower. Oh, that imminent, oh God, you're shaking your head and you're mad and clenching your jaws and you're like, God, it's ridiculous. He's mowing his lawn right now. What an idiot. You can do that, but over time you're like, oh, that's my Zen teaching right there. How can I just accept that? Yeah, he's mowing his lawn. It doesn't mean I have to have a reaction to it. He's just mowing his lawn. So maybe it doesn't work the first time, maybe it doesn't work the second time, but however many times you sit down to meditate, neighbor starts his lawnmower. You do not have a physical reaction. Yes, you hear him start the lawnmower, but you just go back to concentrating your posture. You don't tense up. You don't start cussing him out in your mind. You just concentrate your posture. Because what makes us mad is not the guy with the lawnmower. What makes us mad is what allows us to be mad is just it's in ourself. We don't need the guy on the lawnmower to get mad. People will get frustrated just sitting by themselves in meditation. They'll start getting frustrated about something. It's in our minds, and we can control this. I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. I've been doing it for over 20 years, but over time you can see, and like little by little, and so we can uh, learn how to not replay these things in our mind, or the things that we do replay in our mind, the stories that we tell ourselves, which is another key point. When you're sitting to meditate, don't tell yourself a story. Just keep going back to your posture, or concentrate on your Tantian, which 2 inches below your navel, 2 inches in. You just look at that with your mind's eye, and you're also like with your eyes kind of like half closed, and you're looking towards the floor by your knees, but more like in the space in between. So it can get more and more detailed than that. Maybe I could have explained that better. But that's pretty much it with the Zen meditation. So with these Zen teachings, they go on and on and on. But through these meditations, correct posture, allowing correct breathing, and then when these disturbances, these would-be disturbances, will have less and less effect on us, which gives us better health. Because if we're stressed out, that causes all kinds of diseases, right? And so the dog starts to bark. The guy starts his lawnmower. As soon as you sit, you got your incense going, everything's peaceful. And then, uh, you live in an apartment and the baby next door starts crying or something like that. Or something happened from your past and you replay that in your mind a lot. And I've done this too. Still do. And but instead of, when these things pop in your mind, instead of tensing up and telling yourself a story about it, correct your posture and just relax, and you learn how to not have that physical reaction. And then so over time you learn how to well, for instance, my jujitsu teacher would tell us publicly. It's kind of a private thing, but he would tell it to us. He'd say that when he was going through his divorce, he would sit down to meditate, and there's his ex-wife in his mind, and he'd be like cussing in his mind about it. And uh, so meditation's over. The next day, sits to meditate. There she is in his mind, and he's cussing her out in his mind. But concentrate the posture, concentrate the posture, concentrate the posture, work the technique. And then he said later, when he saw her at the store, he smiled at her. And he said she wasn't smiling, but he could smile at her. And that really stuck with me. So he's really taught me so much. I said something on the last podcast about how and there's a way I resent him. But I did say it's not his fault that I have some resentment. It's in my own mind. The resentment being from what I thought we should be practicing, like what I knew he could be teaching us, and what he was at these later years. Doesn't mean he was wrong. It just means this is the stuff that was going through my mind. But the stuff that he has taught me had a huge effect. And I can see how other people that maybe have been doing martial arts for a long time don't have that same. You can tell they didn't learn from him, I guess you could say. And I've seen it at my job. And not to talk, well, I guess I am kind of saying something negative about this guy, but there's a guy who, like, the main machine operator. So there's like three or four of us that are on this machine. It's this big thing. And I was new on this machine. I just started running this part of the machine. And he came over and he started kind of barking at me. I was like, man, don't talk to me like that. Just tell me what I need to know, and I'll fix whatever it is, but don't talk to me like that. And he kept at it. He kept talking to me, and I know he's going through some tough personal stuff, but join the club, right? But he was kind of barking at me, and I was like, man, I'm telling you, just tell me what I need to know, and I'll fix it. And so just a little bit later, he came back up to me and he said, I'm sorry if you thought I was yelling at you. I didn't have my earplugs in, and I couldn't tell how loud I was being. And I didn't say anything. I'm not somebody that needs someone's apology. I thought the overall gesture of it was nice. He didn't have to come over and have to say that. But he said, I'm sorry if you thought I was yelling at you. Not just like, oh, I'm sorry for yelling at you. I'm sorry if you thought I was. Like, oh, so it's still my fault. But anyways, close enough for me. You know, I thought it was nice that he came over and said anything. He's a good dude. Stressed out. He has a lot more pressure than I do on this machine, and for making sure everything goes right. And but when we're sitting in meditation, these things pop up into our mind. So things that we could do better, we sit down, oh, there it is. This is what I shouldn't have done that. But we don't dwell on that. We shouldn't tell ourselves a story about that. There's nothing wrong with thinking that through, but when you're sitting to meditate, just concentrate the posture. Don't have a physical reaction to these things that pop into your mind. And then when somebody comes over and they start barking at you, if you're not really under any physical threat, don't act like you are. Don't allow your body to start producing all these danger chemicals, like you're about to have to like fight for your life, and then be mad about it for days and weeks, and come home and you end up yelling at your wife. Oh, you had a bad day at work. This guy said, oh. It ends up not being a big deal. Uh, I believe also, if through this meditation, that if you are under a real threat, if you are under a physical threat, you're able to control your mind. So then you can control your body, because this is what you've been doing. You've been controlling your body with your mind, and you've been controlling your mind with your body. Both ways. You control your body with your mind, and you can control your mind with your body. So if you are under a physical threat, oh, you really do have to fight for your life, you're able to recognize that and apply your training, hopefully, for that situation. I think I'm going to pretty much leave it at that. I may, I'll certainly cover different aspects of training in the future. If I know a lot of people listen to the show regularly, and so we're getting new listeners all the time. It's really cool. It's really, really kind of surreal to really surreal to see the map of who's listening, and I really appreciate it. I try to make this show really good. I try to bring you great guests. I have some really great guests coming up. I've had some amazing guests in the past, recent past. It hasn't been that long ago. So I'm going to continue to find great guests. I have at least one of them planned. Today's Tuesday. Sunday, I have a really cool one planned. I heard Joe Rogan talking about him. I sent him a message. He's coming on the show. A physiotherapist that I just discovered yesterday, I sent him a message. He's coming on the show. I don't want to say his name until it actually happens, because sometimes things take a long time to actually schedule, and so I don't like to say who's coming on until it actually happens. But just to see the show grow every month, and looking at the analytics and starting at the bottom left of the graph and it going up and up and up towards the top right, just steady growth. It's really amazing. And so my goal is to definitely make this show the best show for fitness and consciousness related topics. So sometimes we'll get pretty esoteric. It's just the way I am. Or today, I was trying to not get into the esoteric. I was just trying to talk about, these physical training methods, and then get into the Zen a little bit. And then I end up getting into a bit of the esoteric, which it's just me. It's just the way that I am. And I have things planned out. And for the most part, I just let it fly and see what happens. So I hope people enjoy that. If you have any feedback for me, you can send it to fitnessandconsciousness@gmail.com. If you would like to be a guest, send me an email. If you have show ideas, if you have, whatever it is, send me a message if you'd like to hear me talk about something. If you would like to do online training with me, send me a message. We'll see if I'm a good fit for you. And it can be over like Skype, or like I use Zoom. I usually use Zoom. It's a free app for, I have a subscription, but it's free for everyone else. That you don't have to have a subscription. So send me a message with what it is that you're looking for, and I can tell you what I can do, or if someone else might be a better fit for you. So, thank you for listening. I will talk to you next time.